This is Darla Meany from the Mental Health and Wellbeing Summit. I hope everybody is well out there. I know we're all experiencing difficult times and it's different for everybody at the moment. So we've been asked by a couple of people if we would maybe help by putting out a few pieces of information to help people with their mental health and wellbeing, obviously during this time. As you know, at the Mental Health and Wellbeing Summit, we're always very careful of the content we deliver. So what we have done is we've gone out to a couple of our previous speakers and some other mental health professionals to ask if they would have a little chat with us over the next few weeks about different topics that we think might be of interest to you. And we'd love to hear your feedback. We'll just be putting these chats out on our social media channels, and you can watch them or download them whenever you want, whenever you have the time to look at them. Okay, so joining us today is Linda Breathnach, who is a counsellor psychotherapist, and she is going to talk to us about parenting and how we look after ourselves, because obviously it's not all about the kids. The parents need to look after themselves so that they are in a good and fit place to look after the children. So, Linda, hello.
Hi, Darla.
How are things going for you and your family?
Good, yeah. I think we're starting finally this week. I think we kind of settled into a little bit of not necessarily routine. We're not doing the same thing every day, but we've got used to the scenario. The first couple of weeks, obviously, were a bit challenging, but I think we're a bit more settled now. Thanks.
Yeah, I know it's difficult for everybody, and of course we're all facing different challenges. And one of the things I suppose we'd be conscious of is the amount of information that people are being bombarded with online, and there can be a bit of an overload from that, from all sectors. And I suppose the difficulty is for all of us is trying to filter, some of the bad news out of our lives and try to stay focused on the positive. So I suppose, to ask from a parenting point of view, with all of the information parents are being bombarded with, to look after the kids, what to do, make sure they get exercise, make sure they do their homework. And I suppose as parents, we get lost in looking after the kids. So how do we look after ourselves? Because in order to be strong enough, I suppose, to deal with this and mind them properly, we need to look after ourselves. And it's probably something we don't do. So maybe you could help us a little bit with that.
Yeah, and I think it is really difficult now more than ever. And I think anything that might have been just bubbling beneath the surface is being magnified right now in terms of our challenges. So I think from conception, from the minute we're pregnant with a baby, our partner is pregnant, we become those emotions of anxiety and guilt and inadequacy and trying so hard to get everything right, they all kick in. And now in this current crisis, it's even harder because we're trying to juggle a lot more balls and all under the same roof at the time. So in terms of minding ourselves, I think it's the first part of that is really just acknowledging that this is unique times that we're living in, and that we have to acknowledge the enormity of what's happening and what we're going through, because I think sometimes we're tempted to dismiss our own experience and to be hard on ourselves. And like you say, we're bombarded with homeschooling, work from home, all this kind of life-work balance and all of the things in the air, and we can get sucked into that. So it is about maybe giving ourselves a break a little bit, letting ourselves off the hook and acknowledging the enormity of what we're going through. And that in turn will give the feelings permission, because sometimes we go, well, what the hell is wrong with me? Why am I feeling like this? And I've heard that so much over the last few weeks, when really every feeling is normal in response to what we're going through right now. But what makes the feelings worse and exacerbated is how we talk to ourselves as a response to those emotional reactions. So I think we have to, work even harder.
I think a lot of the feelings, like a lot of people would be saying, oh, I'm so tired. Why am I so tired all the time? This is pretty exhausting. And I think maybe it's the amount of responsibility that's we're putting on ourselves, trying to do everything and trying to stay on top of everything.
Yeah, exactly. And this is exhausting, and it is a crisis, and it overlaps into those type of feelings that you have when you have grief and loss. And it's like something has just come at us like a train, and the shock and the anxiety that we had at the start, some of that has eased off, but we need to recover from that. And I've regularly heard that in the last couple of weeks, where people are just so tired. And some days we're really productive and motivated, and definitely the sunshine helps with that. But other days, there's people having naps in the day that have never had a nap before in their lives, and I think that's okay. But it's sometimes I'm hearing people kind of saying, oh, I did nothing with my day, I wasted my day, I'm getting into a bad habit, I'm useless, or I can't cope with this at all. And it's that type of chatter and talk that goes on inside that can lead that one off day or off hour where we're feeling tired and stressed, that can kind of be escalated into lasting longer if we're not kind to ourselves, or if we don't have a little bit of self-compassion around. That's to be expected. It's a normal response to these abnormal times.
So how do we find that quiet time? Like, it's very difficult in the midst, as parents or guardians, no matter what age your children are, we all have different challenges. Some of us have little kids, some have teenagers, some have exam kids at home who don't know what's going on. We're all trying to stay on top of either, some people are working from home, some people have lost their jobs. So where, as a parent, do you find that little quiet space just to give yourself a break? Like, it's a difficult thing to do, but is something we nearly need to put on our list to remind ourselves to do? Is that what we do?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we need to plan it. I think you're dead right. We need to put it on the list. So when we're working through, we're making our shopping list, because we're trying to have less shopping trips than we normally do. We're trying to organize activities with the kids, and I think we still, on that list, we should put phone call with my best friend or my mother or whatever it is, that it's not just, I think one of the things I have been saying to people is really to connect with people outside of the family as much as possible. So to tell everybody in the house at 4 o'clock, I have this call or meeting or whatever you want to call it, and plan it, and tell your friend or your family member that you're connecting with that you're going to take this time out and talk to another adult and really have a Zoom or a chat or whatever it is, and give yourself that space. But the planning piece, whatever it is, even it might be a walk or it might be time to read a book, but to plan it and actually put it on the list, like what you're saying, and to tell everybody, even children as young as preschool will understand that. If you say, Mommy needs to have her shower now, Mommy doesn't want to be interrupted, or Daddy, or to tell everybody that this is important. And I suppose, like you say, to kind of treat it as equally as important as parents we keep, but now more than ever we actually have to look at it to put it in place.
Yeah, absolutely. Something it's difficult to do as parents, and I suppose on that, something that you and I have touched on before is when we're talking about self-care, some parents and some of us, can feel a little bit selfish, maybe putting ourselves first. So what is the difference between self-care and selfish? How do we, justify it's fine for you to take this time out, the kids will be grand, so they'll be still watching that video or whatever when you come back. So how do you justify, not that we need to, but as parents we're feeling guilty?
Yeah, it's something I hear all the time is, I was thinking about it, but I just felt selfish and I put it further down the list and I just never got around to it or whatever. I don't see self-care as selfish. And I suppose the way I explain it back to people is, it's not about putting yourself first. It's not about being selfish and may feign. It's about treating yourself equally as well as you treat the people around you that you care about. So it's, like that overused analogy of the oxygen mask on the plane. You can't help somebody else fix their oxygen mask if you've collapsed because you haven't put yours on. And it's the same with our basic needs and self-care, in terms of encouraging our kids to be whatever we're trying to encourage them around in terms of healthy choices during these difficult times. We need to kind of model it and actually practice it for ourselves as well. So it's about being as kind to ourselves as we would to a friend or a family member. Yeah.
So it's that self-compassion piece about us not being too hard on ourselves. So I suppose one of the other things that, as you said, you touched on there recently, we've probably overcome the shock piece Now we're
Yeah.
into kind of dealing. So there's a bit of longevity now in this. I think we all know we're in this for at least
Yeah.
the next couple of months. And you know,
Yeah.
pressures are going to be there. You know, maybe kids in colleges will go back to school in September, please God. But financially, we could all find ourselves in a different position. So I suppose, how do we now pace ourselves for the long run? You know, this is not going to just end in 2 weeks and we're back to normal. So again, as parents, how do we do that? How do we not burn ourselves out?
Well, I think the reason the government is only giving us this information 2 weeks time around lockdown and the different scenarios is because that's what we have to do, cycle. Because if we were all to try and contemplate what we're going to do between now and September, it would be overwhelming and very stressful to try and consider. So I suppose, yeah, it really is about just practicing what we're preaching to our kids around staying in the moment, you know, maybe not to look past, you know, the next few days or the next week or two, because we don't know what the weather is going to be like. We don't know what's going to change. This has changed so much in the last 3 or 4 weeks, and it can change again. So we have to just really stay in the moment and plan what we can in a given hour or a given day, and be kind to ourselves again around that. So if we're having a tough day, that's just today, and a good night's sleep, we might not feel the same again tomorrow. But if we keep giving out to ourselves and beating ourselves up and trying to, I suppose it's about acknowledging as well that we can't do what we've always done. So maybe, I know for us, we had a holiday planned for September and we don't know if that's happening now. And we had other bits and pieces planned through the summer, or we had plans for this Easter. And I suppose now we can't, you know, it does feel abnormal not being able to look forward to something or to plan something ahead. But we can adjust, and we are adjusting. And I suppose again, in that mindset of staying in the moment, we can plan as far as tomorrow or as far as the weekend. And I know, you know, we've had a birthday here and we had to make the best of it and do it differently with video calls and cards in the post and things like that. And so it really is about planning and controlling what we can control and just letting go of the rest. You know, we can't, there's nothing we can do about that. So it's kind of to try and feel empowered about what is within our breath, I suppose. And I suppose another thing about that is anxiety and control can go hand in hand sometimes. When we feel anxious, we try to feel, you know, that we can control the uncontrollable. And it's normal, of course, to feel anxious during these anxious times. But the thoughts that might start spiraling about trying to control things or people around us can become unhealthy. So it's about just separating that, giving ourselves permission to feel whatever we're feeling as a response to this crisis, but also watching the irrational thoughts that might start kicking in and just being gentle with ourselves around that.
Yeah. And trying to think about ourselves every now and again during the day. So I suppose, just to kind of finish off our little chat, there's a couple of tips you might be able to give parents, just I suppose really short little snippets to remind us, how do we look after ourselves in the middle of the chaos that we find ourselves in. But look, I suppose it's new challenges as well. It's not all bad, silver linings and all that. We're maybe getting to spend more quality family time together, or, you know, doing things maybe we didn't have time for before. So yeah, I know you've touched on a few of them there, like keeping in touch with our friends and that. But so yeah, if you just give us a couple of little bullet points that maybe we can take away from this chat. And
I just put together 5 kind of main tips that I feel are most important to me in getting through the day or the week. And like you said, one of them is about talking to other adults, not just messages, but actually long conversations and proper connections where possible. And the second one then is around, we can share, this is our plan, this is what we're going to do, and we communicate that to the people around us. The third one, and again, we did touch on it earlier, is around being kind to ourselves and allowing for the days that are a little bit more exhausting or where we're less productive, giving ourselves time to rest and recover on those days, and not to beat ourselves up. And then that will in turn help us to have the other days being more productive. Noticing our critical thoughts, it's always coming up, but you know, I think a lot of people don't even know how critical they are of themselves. And you know, I regularly hear clients use words like idiot or stupid, just mumbling under their breath, you know, criticizing themselves. And just to notice it, even if we can't stop it because it's a habit of a lifetime, just to notice how much pressure we're putting on ourselves when we talk to ourselves like that. And the last one, and I think it's quite important, and it's part of self-care, even though sometimes it's in the context of other people as well. It's make allowances for ourselves and for other people around us. So if somebody is particularly irritable or snappy, you know, it isn't always about us. It's because that's the way the pressure for them is coming out. And to kind of, you know, again, make allowances for ourselves too. And I suppose in our house, we've been using humor. Oh, it's so-and-so's turn now is going off on a meltdown, and to kind of, you know, it's your turn today, and that's the mode you're in, and to not take it personally if they've snapped or been irritable or whatever. And I think that helps it to pass a bit earlier. And I've done it with myself as well, and, you know, just to kind of allow for it and let it pass and acknowledge that it's normal.
Yeah, fantastic. That's great, Linda. Thanks so much. And thanks for your time, because I know it's all a bit difficult and trying to do it all online when we can't just have a normal chat with each other. So thanks a million for doing that. And hopefully there'll be a few tips there that people can pick up to look after themselves. And take care of yourself and your family, and we'll chat soon.